Thank you for joining today's session in our Ed Talk series at the Community Associations Institute. My name is Brian Butler. I am president of the board of directors here at CAI, and I'm also senior vice president of our high-rise division with First Service Residential Illinois. A part of my professional obligation is to ensure that board members, whether they're volunteers or property managers who work in this industry, are educated and understand key topics as it pertains to the management and the oversight of communities, whether those are homeowners associations, condominium associations, or even building co-ops. Many of the topics that you see in this series are going to be very helpful for you as you fulfill your duties to your community. Today's topic is rule enforcement. It's not always the most exciting topic, but it's certainly the one that we tend to face more often than almost any other. And today we're going to talk at maybe not the legal background, maybe not necessarily all of the technical aspects of rule enforcement, but what are some practical tips that you can take back to your communities to ensure a more harmonious community living. Today we're going to cover some 3 F's as it pertains to rule enforcement. 1 is to be fair. 2, be friendly. And 3, play no favorites when it comes to rule enforcement. For fairness, no one likes to be pulled over when they don't know what the speed limit is. No one likes to be caught on a speed camera or a stoplight if there isn't some notice that that's going to happen. The same is true for rules within community associations. The most important thing that you can do as a property manager or a board member is to be fair. Put your residents on notice. There are some legal underpinnings that go into establishing a rule for your community. Some of that includes proper drafting. Is the language of the rule something that can be applied evenly across the association? Is it something that's actually enforceable, so it doesn't violate some public policy or other non-discrimination language or concept that should be out there? And have you provided proper notice to your community before implementing that rule? Here in the state of Illinois, there are a couple of steps you need to follow in order to properly establish a rule. One of those is to provide notice to your community. So if you're a property manager or a board member and you're working within the Illinois Condominium Property Act, you have to provide a minimum amount of time for your community to review a potential draft rule. The minimum is 10 days. So provide notice to your community and serve that notice in the same way that you would any other official notice. If your community has adopted electronic notification or any sort of email notification rule that allows you to use that electronic notification, you can simply email it out to those folks who have registered and provided consent to that. If you haven't put in place that kind of rule, you'll need to mail that out in the same way that you would anything other, via USPS. After 10 days, you have a second step. As a board, you'll need to call a special meeting of your homeowners. This is an opportunity for your homeowners to, once they've received the actual language of the rule, have a chance to discuss it, ask questions, provide feedback to the board, and it's really just another important step along the way to ensure that there's transparency in your rule establishment process. After that special meeting, the board can then adopt that meeting by a simple majority, or adopt that rule language by a simple majority, and then begin enforcement. So fairness is really key if you're going to have a rule that's effective and one that you as your community is going to live with in the long term. The second aspect of good rule enforcement is to be friendly. What kind of community do you want to live in? Does it feel more like a police state in which every action of your resident is documented and any minor infraction results in a letter or a hearing, a ding, or a financial complication? That's not necessarily the community that many folks want to live in their private lives. As managers, you know that there are a number of tools in your toolbox for you to be able to enforce rules in a way that maintains the positive and constructive atmosphere that most communities wish to foster. So, rather than start with a certified letter where it sounds very official with legalese and perhaps even on letterhead that's very intimidating, sometimes a simple rule infraction can be enforced with a phone call. Perhaps it's a warning. Perhaps it's just a friendly reminder that you may not have noticed, but your TV volume is impacting those around you. I just wanted to give you a call so that you knew that perhaps you could moderate the volume of the TV in your own unit. Again, sometimes just starting with that friendly phone call can go a long way towards maintaining harmony within your community. It doesn't have to stop there. More times than not, perhaps just putting someone on notice or letting them know that their behavior is potentially disturbing others within the community can end the controversy. But that's not always the case. So what do you follow up with? Written notice is always important. Let the person know in writing exactly what behavior of theirs may have violated a rule. Any direct observations that you may have as a property manager, a board member, even a staff member of the association should be maintained and put in writing. Incident reports describing the observed behavior or the observed infraction will be needed in the future if there's ever a hearing or other document that needs to be prepared to provide the unit owner of documentation of their infraction. However, again, language is everything. Nuance can help here. It doesn't have to sound as if these folks or anyone in the community is going to be evicted from their homes for failure to bring in their garbage cans or having their volume too loud in their units. So be very cautious about the language that you use because these are folks that are going to be living in the community potentially for a long time. Anytime that it comes off too heavy-handed too early, it has the potential to upset and even create more of a challenge within your community. Finally, don't play favorites. All of the rules that apply to a community association should be designed to be implemented and enforced evenly. Anytime that a board member violates a rule, they too should be held responsible to the same degree as any other unit owner. Just because a resident is friendly or comes down and smiles at you, if they violate a rule, they need to be held to the same standard. And that's really the idea behind community associations. Folks coming together, living together with a common purpose, and under the same set of guidelines, rules, and obligations. Anytime that there's a favorite that's played, anytime that something isn't enforced evenly, it opens up the association to potential liability. Why is that person being treated differently than I am? Is there a quality about that person where they may get off with a warning where another person may have a substantial fine for that behavior? Again, every decision that you make as a board or community sets a precedent. And anytime that precedent isn't followed, you really need to justify why one situation was treated differently than another. This is especially true whenever there's a legal controversy or anything that happens that needs to escalate beyond a simple warning letter. A hearing, a fine, any sort of enforcement mechanism. Each one of those creates an additional area of potential exposure to an association. So by enforcing those rules evenly, you avoid some of those more uncomfortable and expensive questions that often are sprung out of a simple controversy that expanded far beyond the original intent. So for today's Ed Talk, and again, these are designed to be quick, simple lessons to help you in your everyday enforcement and oversight of your association, are the 3 F's. Be fair, be friendly, and don't play favorites. If you found anything in today's session helpful, please feel free to comment below. If you'd like to learn more about this topic and you'd like to see this in a more expanded educational offering, feel free to note that as well. But here at the CAI, Community Associations Institute of Illinois, we're excited to have you join us and we look forward to seeing you again at the next session.